Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Hockey Talk with TG Podcast. I'm Ty Glenn. Hopefully, you guys are having a great day. As you already know, and if you don't know, let me remind you that this is an NHL trade deadline preview episode of the Hockey Talk with TG Podcast. We're not going to be talking about anything else but trade deadline, trade talks, who will go to where, what makes them a great fit for that team, and all that other good stuff. So we're not going to be talking about games from yesterday. We're not going to be talking about like NHL news. We're just going to be talking about trade deadline news. So all that stuff. I think I might put this on the TG Hockey channel. Just because like on some of my videos on there, I usually do a PowerPoint format on there, whereas on the Hockey Talk TG Podcast YouTube channel, I don't. So I think I might put this on TG Hockey channel. If you're watching this on YouTube, and I'll upload it on there, and you guys can go check it out on there. So yeah. But without further ado, we're going to go ahead and get started. As soon as this loads, okay. All right, just a couple announcements. Make sure that you are following the Hockey Talk with TG podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, and subscribe to the YouTube channel. We're with you every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday from 11:30 a.m. to noon Central Time, 12:30 p.m. to 1 p.m. Eastern Time. Your number one podcast for all things hockey. Also, make sure to go subscribe to the TG Hockey channel as well. Obviously, this video is going to be on there, so you want to make sure that you go ahead over to the TG Hockey channel and check this episode of the Hockey Talk TG podcast out. I did not mean to say video; I meant to say episode. And as you guys know, there's no episode for Friday because it's NHL trade deadline day. League will be going around making a few, giving out trades that happen, and trades are going to happen so quickly that you won't even realize it. That's one of the reasons why I decided not to do an episode on Friday. So following Monday, I will recap all the trades that's happened. I will share my thoughts on it, and I will give out my winners and losers of the trade. Kind of what I did about the Seth Jones trade, the Gustav Nyquist trade when the Predators traded Gustav Nyquist to the Minnesota Wild, and also the Avalanche and Rangers trade. So stuff like that. So you want to make sure that you stay tuned in for Monday's episode of the Hockey Talk with TG podcast because that's what I'll be discussing. How this episode will go. So top 15 NHL players that'll most likely be on the trade market. So I'll give out my top 15 NHL players that'll be on the trade market, which teams will be buyers and sellers, why there will be buyers and sellers. I'll give out 6 teams, 3 buyers, 3 sellers, and why they are buyers and sellers. So make sure that you stay tuned in to the end of this episode for that. All right, so without further ado, we'll give out the top 15 players that are on the trade market. Keep in mind that some of this stuff, or I should say most of this stuff that I talk about, if you're tuning in on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and iHeartRadio, and if you're watching on YouTube on the PowerPoint, most of the you guys will most likely disagree with. And I'm gonna be honest with you guys, I will be I'd be a terrible GM. I would be a terrible GM. I wouldn't know what I'm doing. I'd just be putting anything out there, just be putting anything out there. So just letting you guys know. So most of the stuff that you will see or if you're tuning in audio that you will hear me talk about or say, it's going to be stuff that you are most likely to disagree with. So yeah, just letting you know. All right, with number one. All right, starting with number one. I did have Seth Jones on this, but obviously he was traded to the Florida Panthers. So that's why I took him off this list. So number one, I got Mikko Rantanen of the Carolina Hurricanes. I know the Hurricanes just recently acquired him from the Colorado Avalanche for Marty Necas, Jack Drury, and whoever else was involved in that three-way trade with the Hurricanes, Avalanche, and Blackhawks. I know Hurricanes like the last recent trade, they just got him, but something tells me he could be, traded again. And teams that think he can be a good fit to, Toronto Maple Leafs, of course, they're a playoff contender, looking to go all the way. But we all know that's not going to happen. That's not going to happen. But of course, with the addition of Mikko Rantanen, they'll have two goal scorers on the team, Austin Matthews and Mikko Rantanen. Or he could go to the New Jersey Devils, go play with Jack Hughes. Another team that he could go to, Calgary Flames. Calgary Flames, I think, are currently in a wild card spot as of right now, or I should say as I'm recording this episode, because I'm currently recording this episode on a Tuesday, and the Flames are in action today against the Philadelphia Flyers. So this episode will be out to you guys, obviously, on Wednesday. And another team that I think he can be a good fit for is the Boston Bruins. Of course, the Bruins have 64 points, knocking on the door on a playoff spot. They're 2 points out of a playoff spot. They lost their recent game to the Nashville Predators by a final score of 6-3. So they could be looking to make a playoff push, and Mikko Rantanen could provide that. He's a proven goal scorer who can have a lot of offensive production. He has potential, as we all know. Of course, he was acquired in that three-way trade involving the Avalanche and Blackhawks. Contract, I think, is set to expire. He'll be a UFA in the offseason. So teams are, probably going to be looking to sign him, especially if they need that scoring prowess. Number 2, Bo Byram of the Buffalo Sabres. So teams that I think he can be a good fit for, Troy Red Wings. Of course, the Red Wings, the Rangers obviously jumped the Red Wings for the playoff for the second wild card spot in the Eastern Conference. As I'm reading on my phone, or looking at it on my phone, I should say, the Rangers jumped the the Red Wings for that second wild card spot. And of course, the Red Wings are obviously looking to end their playoff drought. They're looking to, get into the playoffs, and they could add Bo Byram on their blue line. Another team that I think he can be a great fit for, Ottawa Senators. Of course, the Ottawa Senators, another team that's knocking on the playoff spot. They're knocking on the door, literally right there. And they could use Bo Byram. Of course, the Senators, I didn't expect them to. Well, actually, I take that back. Like the additions that they had in the offseason coming into this season, I think they were great additions. And I kind of knew they were going to be in a wild card spot. Right now, they're not in a wild card spot, but they're knocking on the door. And they could use a young D-man and Bo Byram to help out with their blue line. Another team that I think can be a great fit for us, the Columbus Blue Jackets. Of course, Ivan Provorov is going to be one of those big names on the trade market. And so the Blue Jackets could get Bo Byram. Not saying that a trade for Bo Byram could, possibly work unless you add a draft pick or, a solid good player in that trade. I don't think it'll work. But Blue Jackets could, possibly get Bo Byram from the Buffalo Sabres. Another team that I think can be a great fit for is the Chicago Blackhawks. So we all know, especially if you're a Blackhawks fan like myself, the Blackhawks are a rebuilding team. They're looking for youth. They're looking for potential. They're looking for growth. All that good stuff. And Bo Byram fits exactly that. And we already have a lot of young defensemen on the team like Alex Vlasic, Wyatt Kaiser, Louis Crevier, and we could have Bo Byram as another young D-man, especially if the Hawks are, looking to move Connor Murphy at the trade deadline. So, of course, Bo Byram was traded to the Sabres for Casey Milstad. He could be moved again at the deadline. I'm hoping now these 4 teams, obviously it's the Blackhawks, because I am a Blackhawks fan, and I am looking out for youth and potential. And like I said, Bo Byron fits exactly that. Number 3, got Ryan Donato of the Chicago Blackhawks. So he's a name that could be on the trade market at the deadline. Of course, I'll be creating an article on 3 players that I feel like the Blackhawks could move, or that possibly will be moved at the deadline. So you guys did not see my article today on Blackhawk Up, or in case for you guys, since this episode will be coming out on Wednesday, so you didn't see my article yesterday on Blackhawk Up about what the Blackhawks should do about the goaltending situation now that they have 4 goalies on their roster. You want to go ahead and check that out. I'll put it in the description for you guys as well. But I'm currently working on an article for Blackhawk Up about 3 players that the Chicago Blackhawks could trade or that are most likely to be traded at the deadline. So one team that I feel like Ryan Donato could be a great fit for is the Boston Bruins. Obviously, the Bruins, I don't know if they're going to move away from Brad Marchand, but Ryan Donato could provide that scoring depth for the Boston Bruins, and that is what they need if the Bruins are looking to make a push towards the playoffs. Another team that I think it can be a great fit for, especially a team that is, searching for depth, is the Columbus Blue Jackets. Blue Jackets are already having a, shocking, surprising season, and they're looking to add more depth to get into the playoffs, and right now could be just that. Another team out in the East, not the East, the West, the Utah Hockey Club. Utah Hockey Club, 63 points in the Western Conference, 4 points out of a playoff spot. The Blues are ahead of them with 64 points. Canucks are ahead with 65 points. And the Flames beat the Flyers today by a final score of 6-3. They got 67 points. They're in second place in a Western Conference wildcard playoff spot. And Utah Hockey Club, I did say, or at least I thought I said at the start of the season, that Utah Hockey Club could possibly make the playoffs in their first season. Kind of like what the VGK Vegas Golden Knights did in their first season, except the Golden Knights were actually better and started off great than Utah Hockey Club did. And then another team that I feel like it could be a great fit for, Nashville Predators. So the Predators obviously going to be sellers at the deadline, right? They're going to be sellers at the deadline. They're going to be looking to trade some players that, probably won't be around with the team or that feel like they need to go somewhere else. I think I heard Barry Trotz say that before at some point in this season. Obviously, we all know Barry Trotz has been with the Predators for a while. He's coached the Predators before. He actually was the first coach for the Predators in their franchise history. And the Predators had came into the league in 1998, and Barry Trotz was their first coach. Now he's their GM, and he could be looking to move some players from the Nashville Predators. Could see Ryan Donato as a potential option to get, and of course, Ryan Donato can provide that secondary scoring touch. And the Blackhawks, they could trade Ryan Donato to acquire future assets or young prospects or players as part of their rebuilding process. Number 4, another Blackhawk, Connor Murphy. Kind of what I was talking about when I mentioned Bo Byron. Blackhawks could possibly trade Connor Murphy, and with that, they could get Bo Byron from the Buffalo Sabres so they can have that young defensive core. Now, as a Blackhawks fan, I wouldn't mind if Connor Murphy would stay on the team after the deadline. I think it, kind of feels a little bit weird trading him, but obviously going to be a big name on the trade market, so I feel like why not just throw him in here. But as a Blackhawks fan, I don't mind Kyle Davidson keeping Connor Murphy after the trade deadline. But if they do look to trade him, they could send him to the Florida Panthers like they did with Seth Jones. Obviously, the Panthers are trying to win back-to-back Stanley Cups, and Connor Murphy could be a great fit for that. Could be another veteran defenseman Panthers are looking to add. Winnipeg Jets, another great option. Obviously, the Jets are a playoff contender. They're looking forward to going to the Stanley Cup Finals and, possibly being the Canadian team that gets it done, breaking Canada's 30-plus year Stanley Cup drought. Another team, Boston Bruins. Obviously, the Bruins, at first I said they were going to be sellers, not going to lie. But it feels like the Bruins are coming near and near on the playoff picture. So why not just say that they're buyers? And I think I do have them sellers in this PowerPoint at some point. So when we talk about teams that could be sellers or buyers, I think I might have the Bruins as sellers, but I think they're going to be buyers since they're right there playoff picture. So they're probably going to be buyers or sellers. I don't know. And they could get Connor Murphy on their D just to help out that defensive core. And then another team that I feel like can be a great fit for, Montreal Canadiens, another team that's looking to clinch the playoffs. Obviously, it is tight in the Eastern Conference. Take a look in the Eastern Conference right now. I know there's still a few games going on as I'm recording this episode. Obviously, this episode will be out to you guys on Wednesday, but as I'm recording this episode, there are a few games going on like the Jets and Islanders, Devils and Stars, Penguins and Avalanche. They're still going on as I'm recording this episode, but you should take a look at the Eastern Conference. It is absolutely tight. You got Blue Jackets, Rangers, Red Wings, Senators, Canadians, Bruins knocking on the door for a playoff picture. You could even throw in the Philadelphia Flyers if they continue to rack up more wins. I know they lost to the Calgary Flames 6-3, but if they rack up more wins, could see the Flyers knocking on the door as a playoff team. But benefits for acquiring Connor Murphy, he offers reliable defense and penalty kill abilities. And like I said about Ryan Donato, Blackhawks might move Connor Murphy to gain draft picks or young prospects to help out with the rebuild. But like I said, as a Blackhawks fan, I wouldn't mind seeing Connor Murphy on the team after the trade deadline. So if he goes, he goes. If he stays, he stays. I certainly do not mind. He's taking a look at his defensive stats or his season stats. General, he's got 16 points in 48 games played, 1 goal, 15 assists for 16 points in 48 games played, -4 plus minus. Still not bad. Obviously, better than Seth Jones. So yeah, and also he is 31 years old. He'll turn 32 on March 26th. So obviously not too bad right there. But if you move Connor Murphy, you move Connor Murphy. If you let him stay, he'll stay. Obviously, that's up to Blackhawks general manager Kyle Davidson. Number 5, Scott Laughton of the Philadelphia Flyers. So, of course, Scott Laughton, another big name on the trade market at the trade deadline. Teams looking at him. I could say Toronto Maple Leafs. They could use a little bit of depth on the team. They want to make a big playoff push, which we all know as hockey fans, probably most likely not going to happen despite them going to the second round in 2023. And then, of course, eventually losing to the Eastern Conference champions in the Florida Panthers that year. And then another team that could look at them, Edmonton Oilers. Obviously, the Oilers lost to the Panthers in the Stanley Cup final last season. They're trying to, be that Canadian team that break that Canadian Stanley Cup drought. Edmonton Oilers, and they're looking to add anybody that can, help them finish the job. And Scott Laughton could be that piece. We'll just have to see. And another team, the Ottawa Senators. So Senators, like I said, knocking on the door for a playoff spot. And then another team that could get them, Dallas Stars. They have a lot of depth on their team, I would say. But Scott Laughton could be another great addition. I know they went out. They got Macabre Granlund and Cody Ceci for the San Jose Sharks. They could look to add Scott Laughton. And, of course, the Flyers, if they don't make the playoffs, it could be a rebuild for them. I'm just saying. But they are knocking on the door for a playoff spot. They could knock on the door for a playoff spot if they continue to, rack up more wins. But we'll just have to see. Obviously, I made this PowerPoint last week, so you guys may, see some old stuff that I said before in, this PowerPoint. I made this last week. All right, number 6, Dylan Cousins of the Buffalo Sabres. So, of course, I think he'll be a great fit for the Chicago Blackhawks. I think I mentioned that in one of my articles that I did on Blackhawk Up. I don't know which article it was, but if you go under my name on Blackhawk Up, you can see all the articles that I've written for them, and you can check out one of those articles. I think I mentioned this in one of my articles for Blackhawk. I don't know which one it was, but I said that Dylan Cousins could be a great addition for the Chicago Blackhawks. Obviously, a team that's rebuilding these younger players, these potential younger players. They got the skill, got the talent that they need, and Dylan Cousins could be that. Especially, a team that's looking to add for the center depth. I know they got Connor Bedard, they got Nick Foligno's a ringer. Ryan Donato, I think he plays center, but he could be traded, and so the Blackhawks could get Dylan Cousins. Another player that I think he'll be a great fit for. Another team that I say he'll be a great fit for. San Jose Sharks. Obviously, the Sharks are building, and I don't know if you guys can hear that notification, but it is from ESPN. Hopefully, it this it wouldn't pick up, but if you heard that notification is from ESPN. But another team that I feel like Dylan Cousins could be a great fit for, San Jose Sharks. Obviously, they're a rebuilding team as well. Of course, they got Macklin Celebrini, Will Smith on the team, William Eklund. They can add another great young player in Dylan Cousins. And another team that I think he'll be a great fit for, Seattle Kraken. Obviously, the Kraken, most likely to be sellers at the deadline, so they could use Dylan Cousins on their team. And then the Philadelphia Flyers is my last team because, like I said, Flyers are trying to knock on the door for a playoff spot. And Dylan Cousins could, possibly be a great fit for the Philadelphia Flyers. Like I said before, most of the stuff is probably stuff that you guys would disagree with. That's why I said I think I'd be a terrible GM if I do stuff like this. But if you do agree with this, just let me know down in the comments. If you disagree with this, it wouldn't be a surprise. So yeah. But the Sabres might trade Cousins to get, experienced players or, just to shake up the roster in general. So we'll just have to see what happens at the deadline. Number 7, Trevor Zegras to the Anaheim Ducks. I know some people would disagree with me, saying that Trevor Zegras probably won't be traded, but Trevor Zegras hasn't been the Trevor Zegras that we saw in the 2021-22 season or the 2022-23 season. We haven't seen that same Trevor Zegras. His stats are not as good as those stats that we saw in 2021-22 season and the 2022-23 season. Therefore, I feel like he could be traded, and he could come to the Chicago Blackhawks. We have a spot for him in the shot towns. You know what I mean? We could see Trevor Zegras as a Chicago Blackhawk. Correct me if I'm wrong. I think he'll be a great fit in Chicago. But also, we got to think about the other teams that he could be a great fit for. San Jose Sharks as another one. Get to play with Macklin Celebrini and Will Smith. I know Anaheim Ducks fans probably won't like that option, considering that the Sharks and Ducks have a California type rivalry. So Ducks fans will not like that one, and I wouldn't blame you if you're a Ducks fan. Another team that I think he'll be a great fit for, Montreal Canadiens, gets to play with his buddy Cole Caulfield. Of course, they play with each other in the World Juniors. I think in 2021, when USA won against Canada in the 2021 World Juniors, I think Trevor Zegras and Cole Caulfield were on that team. They were also in the USA National Development Program together, so why not play for the same NHL team in the Montreal Canadiens? And then this one was kind of hard to decide on whether Trevor Zegras should play for the New York Rangers or Buffalo Sabres. That's why I have that dash mark if you're watching this on YouTube. So either he can play for the New York Rangers or Buffalo Sabres as one of the other 4 teams. And of course, Trevor Zegras, he has a lot of potential. He has a lot of skill, as we all know. He's been doing Michigans over and over again during the 2021-22 season. He also brings a lot of creativity and offensive flair. And the Ducks might consider trades Trevor Zegras to acquire assets that align better with their long-term plans. Obviously, it doesn't feel Trevor Zegras hasn't been, himself. Hasn't been the same Trevor Zegras we saw in 2021-22 season, so the Ducks could, look to trade him to get new players. Number 8, Elias Pettersson. I know the Canucks, I was about to say Blackhawks for a second, but I know the Canucks traded JT Miller to the New York Rangers. Elias Pettersson could be on the move as well, or he could, possibly stay with the team, either or. One team that I think he'll be a great fit for, Minnesota Wild, obviously a playoff team, and Elias Pettersson. I know the Canucks are knocking on the door for a playoff team, so he probably could, stay in Vancouver and, help the Canucks make the playoffs. But if that doesn't happen, he could go to the Minnesota Wild because they're, actually a better team than the Canucks. They're a playoff team. I know the Canucks are knocking on the door for a playoff spot, but if Elias Pettersson feels like he needs a change of scenery, State of Hockey could be a great place for him to go. Another great place for him to go, the Windy City, Chicago. Could come to Chicago Blackhawks, play with Connor Bedard, play with Frank Nazar, and a whole lot of other young players on our team. Could be a great fit for Chicago. And another team that I think he'll be a great fit for is Nashville Predators. And I know Canucks fans won't like that one, especially since the Canucks and Predators faced off against each other in the Stanley Cup playoffs last season. So I don't know how Canucks fans will feel about this one. But obviously, the Predators are obviously going to be sellers and trying to look to add new pieces to the team that could make them better for next season. Elias Pettersson could be a great player for that. And another team that I feel like he can be a great fit for, Boston Bruins. Like I said, they're probably going to be buyers. They're going to be sellers. I don't know which one the Boston Bruins are going to be. Obviously, they are knocking on the door for a playoff spot. Elias Pettersson could fit just that. And of course, he has a lot of offensive skills and playmaking abilities. So those are the benefits for whatever team that decides to acquire him. Reason for trades, contract negotiations, or just a change of scenery or a fresh start for Elias Pettersson could make the Canucks trade him. Number 9, another Vancouver Canuck, and Brock Boeser. So Brock Boeser, he could be traded, or he could stay Vancouver Canuck. Who knows? But obviously, he's going to be a big name on the trade market for sure. And the teams that, looking at him could be the Minnesota Wild, obviously. Like I mentioned about Elias Pettersson when I was talking about him. The Canucks, are on the door, knocking on the door for a playoff spot. I don't know if they, actually make the playoffs. And that's why I said that, he could actually go to a actual playoff team in the Minnesota Wild. I don't know if the Canucks will be a playoff team this year with how crowded the Western Conference is starting to be, but not as crowded as the East. Not as crowded as the Eastern, but kind of, like gap in how crowded West is starting to be, though. So that's why I said he could go to an actual playoff team. Another team that I think he'll be a great fit for, Chicago Blackhawks. Could be a great fit for Chicago Blackhawks. Obviously, we need the talent and we need the goal scoring prowess. Brock Boeser fits exactly that. And we also need somebody that can step up on the power play with Connor Bedard. Brock Boeser can fit that as well. So it's up to Kyle Davidson seeing if he wants to go out and get Brock Boeser. I think it'll be, a solid trade. He has 36 points in 53 games played this season for the Vancouver Canucks, 18 goals, 18 assists for 36 points in 53 games played. Another team that I think he'll be a great fit for, New York Islanders. So obviously, Islanders are looking to trade Brock Nelson, or most likely to trade Brock Nelson at the trade deadline. They could get another Brock in Brock Boeser. They could, swap Brock Nelson for Brock Boeser. I don't think that trade will go through, though, but if you add like draft picks or another solid player in the trade, I think it will go through. Highly unlikely to go through Brock Boeser for Brock Nelson. But obviously, the Canucks are probably looking to free up some cap space. So trading Brock Boeser could be the best thing for them. Who knows? Number 10, Rasmus Ristolainen. So on one of the episodes of Morning Cup of Hockey I was listening to, I know it was either Johnny or Kobe. I don't know which one it was. But they were talking about how Rasmus Ristolainen could be traded to another team to help with their blue line. And so I was thinking maybe he might be a big name on the trade market. Maybe, they're right. He could be traded to another team to help out with their blue line, especially for a team that's contending for the playoffs. And I say he can be a great fit for the LA Kings. Kings might. I don't know what the Kings blue line is looking like. I know they got Drew Doughty, and I don't know what their blue line is looking like, but they could use Rasmus as the line. They got Mikey Anderson. They got Brent Clark on their blue line. So, I mean, it's not bad, especially for a team that's, for sure going to be a playoff team. But if you want to bolster up your blue line, Rasmus Ristolainen is the defenseman again. And then another team, Boston Bruins. So the Bruins, like I said, either going to be buyers or sellers. Don't know. But they could use Rasmus Ristolainen on their blue line. Another team that I feel like he can be a great fit for, the Columbus Blue Jackets. So the Blue Jackets are obviously going to, most likely be a playoff team. Going to be buyers considering the season that they are having. So they could go out and get Rasmus Ristolainen to help out with the blue line. And another team, Dallas Stars, like I said, they have a lot of depth on their team already, but they could add some more depth on their blue line in Rasmus Ristolainen. And of course, Rasmus Ristolainen, he has the size, he has the strength, and he provides a physical presence on the blue line. He's 6'4", 208 pounds, so he has the size, he has the skill, he has the strength, and he could be a great fit for another team. If the Flyers feel like that, probably won't be a great part for them. Probably won't be a great player for them, or be with the team any longer. They could look to trade him. Just have to see. Number 11, Brock Nelson. So, like I said, when I was talking about Brock Besser, Islanders could trade Brock Nelson. A few teams that I feel like he would be a great fit for. Colorado Avalanche, obviously, he's a veteran in the game. Avalanche are going to be a playoff team. They're in the wild card spot, and Brock Nelson could provide that veteran presence for them. Another team, Minnesota Wild. Of course, I think Brock Nelson is from Minnesota. Correct me if I'm wrong. And I feel like since he's from Minnesota, why not put him on his hometown team in the Minnesota Wild? And then another team that I think he can be a great fit for, Boston Bruins. Obviously, the Bruins are looking forward to add some center depth, especially since, Patrice Bergeron and David Krejci's not on the team anymore. And obviously going to be a playoff team, maybe knocking on the door for a playoff spot, so they could look to add him. And another team, Utah Hockey Club. Obviously, Utah Hockey Club is going to be sellers, and they look forward to add a veteran on the team in Brock Nelson. So could see him on Utah Hockey Club. Who knows? All right, and reason for trade, I feel like the Islanders, they shouldn't hang on to Brock Nelson. I feel like they should just trade him. Obviously, there are rumors going on around about it, so I feel like his time as a New York Islander could be up. But let me know you guys' thoughts down in the comments about that. Could he still be an Islander after the trade deadline, or could we see Brock Nelson in a new sweater? All right, number 12, Casey Middlestat of the Colorado Avalanche. Could see Casey Middlestat traded. Obviously, teams that I think he'll be a great fit for. Toronto Maple Leafs, obviously, they need some. They're going to be a playoff team for sure. They're going to look to bolster their offensive lines. Casey Middlestat could fit that. Another team, Columbus Blue Jackets. Blue Jackets are obviously going to be a playoff team, no doubt in mind, with the way they've been playing it lately. Another team that he can be a great fit for, Buffalo Sabres. I know he was acquired in that Bo Byram trade. I sent Bo Byram to the Sabres and Casey Middlestat to the Avalanche. Could be a possibility that they can swap them back. So Bo Byram goes back to the Avalanche. Casey Middlestat goes back to the Sabres. Who knows? And then another team, Florida Panthers. Obviously, the Panthers are looking to go back to back, looking to win back-to-back Stanley Cups. And Casey Milstead, with the offensive playmaking depth scoring that he has, he could provide just that. He's also known for his high hockey IQ and could help out on the power play. And teams might be in need for a middle six center or a playmaker, so and he could fit either one of these teams. Number 13, Sidney Crosby, the Pittsburgh Penguins. As much as it pains me to say this, Sidney Crosby could be traded at the deadline. And like I said, it really pains me to say this. I want him to stay Pittsburgh Penguin. I want him to retire as a Pittsburgh Penguin. I don't want him to be traded. I want him to remain with the Pittsburgh Penguins. It will feel weird to me to see him in another jersey. But obviously the Penguins are nowhere near a playoff spot. They're not going to make the playoffs. The 24, 29, and 10 of the season. They lost in overtime on Sunday to the Toronto Maple Leafs. They are currently in action against the Colorado Avalanche as I'm recording this episode. But he could play for the Colorado Avalanche. He could be with his Nova Scotia best friend and teammate from the Four Nations for Team Canada and Nathan MacKinnon. We could see Sidney Crosby and Nathan MacKinnon together. I would love to see that. If the Penguins do decide to trade Sidney Crosby, I would love to see him on the Colorado Avalanche and not on any other team. But if they do try to trade him to another team, could be the Boston Bruins, could be the Red Wings, especially if they are looking to contend for a playoff spot, or it could be the New York Rangers. So who knows? But obviously, out of any of these teams, I would say the Colorado Avalanche. I think he'll be a great fit for the Colorado Avalanche, and I would love to see him play with Nathan MacKinnon, Cale Makar, and all those other guys on the team. But mostly Nathan MacKinnon, since they're best friends and the Nova Scotia boys and know each other pretty well. So I'm pretty sure it'll work out if Sidney Crosby does decide to be traded, which I'm hoping that he doesn't. But like I said, Penguins are, possibly going to be moving on from the trio of Sidney Crosby, Evgeny Malkin, and Chris Letang. They're probably going to be a rebuilding team, nowhere near a playoff spot, and so they may be looking to move a few players. So, and I think Sidney Crosby is going to be one of them. I'm hoping it doesn't be him. Hopefully he still remains as a Pittsburgh Penguin after the trade deadline. Hopefully that he doesn't go to any other team in general. I want him to retire as a Pittsburgh Penguin. I want him to play all of his NHL career with the Pittsburgh Penguins. I don't want to see him in another jersey. But like I said, if he does get traded, I would love to see him as a Colorado Avalanche. Number 14, Brad Marchand, the Boston Bruins. So just as I was talking about with Sidney Crosby, I don't think the Bruins should trade Brad Marchand, but obviously there are rumors going around that they might trade Brad Marchand. And I know if you're a Boston Bruins fan, look away, or put this, or don't even listen to what I'm about to say. Just put it on mute for this part. Team that I think it can be a great fit for us. The Toronto Maple Leafs, obviously, looking to go towards the playoffs. They could get a veteran winger in Brad Marchand. Obviously, the Bruins and Maple Leafs have a rivalry. So, like I said, I know Boston Bruins fans are not going to like that. They're going to hate that. I'm hoping that Brad Marchand does stay with the Boston Bruins. I don't want to see him get traded, but I'm hearing other people talk about it, so that's why I put him in this PowerPoint. Another team I feel like he can go to, Edmonton Oilers. Obviously, the Oilers, they're trying to, avenge themselves or, redeem themselves after what happened last year in the Stanley Cup final against the Florida Panthers. And Brad Marchand could help them out and lead them to a Stanley Cup and be that Canadian team that breaks the Stanley Cup drought. And then another team I think can be a great fit for Vegas Golden Knights. Obviously, the Golden Knights are going to be a playoff team. They could add a veteran in Brad Marchand. We'll just have to see how the deadline goes. And then another team that I think can be a great fit for us, the Vancouver Canucks. And I know Canucks fans are not going to like this. Bruins fans are not going to like this, especially what happened in 2011 after the Bruins won the Stanley Cup against the Canucks. The Canucks fans, they had a riot. I'm pretty sure all you guys know that, especially if you're Canucks fans, there was a riot after the Bruins won the Stanley Cup in Game 7. People were setting things on fire, beating each other up in the parking lot, jumping on the poles in the streets of Vancouver, a whole lot of other stuff going after the Bruins beat the Canucks in the 2011 Stanley Cup Finals. I know Canucks fans not going to like that. Bruins fans not going to like that. I'm not going to like that. But I'm just thinking of teams that are in need for that are going to make a playoff push. So that's why I put that. But obviously, I want Brad Marchand to remain as a Boston Bruin. I don't want him to be traded. I want him to remain as a Boston Bruin, finish his career with the Boston Bruins. I know he's talked about before that he wants to be a Boston Bruins. He wants to play with the Boston Bruins. But Don Sweeney, not Don Sweeney, Cam Neely, or whoever's the Bruins general manager, either Don Sweeney or Cam Neely, they could look to move him at the deadline, but hopefully they don't. And number 15, Peter Mrazek and Chicago Blackhawks. So with the addition of Spencer Knight, the Blackhawks have too many goalies on their roster. And like I said, I did do an article of this on Blackhawk Up for you guys to go check out. And I just feel like the Blackhawks have too many goalies on their roster. And they could look to move Peter Mrazek at the deadline. Could go to the Vancouver Canucks. Could go back to Detroit Red Wings, where he, I think, started his career. I don't know if he started. I think he started his career with Detroit Red Wings or the Philadelphia Flyers. Don't really know which one. Or he could play for Utah Hockey Club. Of course, Utah Hockey Club needs a veteran goaltender, and Peter Mrazek could provide just that. And of course, like I said, the Blackhawks had too many goalies on their roster, and they could most likely trade Peter Mrazek at the deadline. All right, top 6 teams that probably be buyers and sellers at the trade deadline. Number 1, Blackhawks. They're going to be sellers. Of course, the Blackhawks are going to be acquiring players that will be around for the long haul. That's future assets. That's draft picks. That's prospects. That's younger players in general that will give them a boost for their rebuild. Key players on the block for them: Ryan Donato, Connor Murphy, and Lucas Reichel. I don't know why I put Connor Murphy twice, as you see right there. But obviously, Ryan Donato, Connor Murphy, Lucas Reichel could be key players on the block for Chicago. Number 2, Boston Bruins. Like I said, I did have my sellers, but I'm gonna actually put a dash. I'm gonna put a dash right here because I think they might be buyers as well. They are knocking on the door for a playoff spot. And so I don't know if they could be sellers or buyers, but players like Brad Marchand could attract contenders that would that wants to make a push towards the playoffs and go to the Stanley Cup final. Number 3, Florida Panthers. Obviously, I'm going to have the Panthers buyers. They're looking to repeat as Stanley Cup champions, and they're focused on acquiring depth scoring and some solid veteran defensemen like they did with Seth Jones. They could be willing to part with future draft picks and prospects to attain immediate help, but it all depends on their salary cap. So we'll just have to see. Number 4, Dallas Stars. No doubt in mind, they'll be buyers. Of course, they recently acquired Mikhail Granlund and Cody Ceci from the San Jose Sharks, obviously to address with that injury issues that they're having, and they are looking forward to go on a deep playoff run. So they are going to be buyers. They're looking to get all the help that they can get to the Stanley Cup final. They went all the way to the Western Conference final last year and lost to the Edmonton Oilers. They're looking to get back to the Stanley Cup final for the first time since 2020. That was in the bubble during COVID. Number 5, Calgary Flames. I had them as buyers. Obviously, the Flames are in a playoff spot. Like I said, I made this PowerPoint last week, so there's going to be some old stuff in here. Flames are in the playoff spot right now, and they could look to get more force that'll help out with their offensive depth and some solid defensemen that'll help out with their blue line. So we'll just have to see what they do at the trade deadline. And number 6, Philadelphia Flyers. I had them as sellers. They probably might go on a rebuild if they don't make the playoffs, but we'll just have to see what Danny Briere goes with there. Obviously, Matt Minchkov is the face of that franchise, trying to build around him like the Blackhawks are trying to build around Connor Bedard. So we'll see how Danny Briere plays his cards and we'll see who remains a Flyer and who doesn't at trade deadline. All right, guys, that is going to do it for this video. I should say video. It's episode. That's going to do it for this episode. Thank you guys for tuning in as always. Really do appreciate it. Make sure to like the podcast. Leave a comment down below. I want to know you guys' thoughts on this, even if you thought it was really stupid and dumb. Like I said, I'm a terrible GM. I don't know what I'm doing. All I'm thinking about is teams that are in need for solid players that could help out if they're trying to make a strong push in the playoffs, like the Jets, Stars, Panthers, Oilers. Those teams are going to be making a strong push in the playoffs. And I was trying to think of solid players, that could help out with that, or teams that's just going to be in playoff contention in general, like the Toronto Maple Leafs, Minnesota Wild, Colorado Avalanche, and that stuff. So I was thinking about that. But let me know you guys' thoughts on this. Even if you thought it was like really stupid and dumb, because like I said, I had no idea what I'm doing. I'm a terrible GM. But like I said, I was just trying to think of teams that really need all the help that they can get with these solid players. But anyway, make sure to follow the Hockey Talk with TG podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, and YouTube, and subscribe to the YouTube channel, with you every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday from 11:30 a.m. to noon Central Time, 12:30 p.m. to 1 p.m. Eastern Time. Make sure to subscribe to the TG Hockey channel. There is no episode of Hockey Talk TG podcast for Friday because of trade deadline day, so I won't be doing an episode of that. But I will be doing an episode Monday where I recap all the trades that's happened, share my thoughts on them, share who's the winner and loser of the trade and why. So stay on the lookout for that. But hope you guys have a great rest of your day. I know this episode was 47 minutes long. I had a feeling it was going to be 47 minutes long because we had a lot of trade deadline stuff to talk about. So, yeah, apologies for that, but we will try to keep it at 30 minutes as we usually do. Both of you guys have a great rest of your day. God first, as always. Be blessed. I will see you guys Monday for another episode of the Hockey Talk with TG podcast. Take care.